All right, everyone, welcome back to day 2 of the 10th annual Toronto Raptors Coaches Open House presented by Tangerine. I'm Kayla Grey. Okay, so if you've joined us for the other sessions, you know how important it is to pay attention. After each session, we're going to have a pop quiz, a Kahoot. So we're going to put the information up on the screen and you can follow along on your phone. Now, the person who answers the most questions correctly and the fastest, get it. They win. Yes, speed, accuracy, they all matter here. And the person with the highest score is going to be mailed a signed Raptors jersey. So my next guest joining me in conversation is Canadian Olympian and WNBA All-Star with the New York Liberty. It is Kia Nurse. Now, Kia, you're from Hamilton. She played her high school ball at St. Thomas More before going to the powerhouse University of Connecticut, where she won 2 NCAA championships. Kia, it is so good to see you, because you've played for a lot of good coaches.
I'm glad to be here. I've got a lot of experience. It's my 20th year playing the sport, so I've been around a lot of different people and a lot of different coaching styles. Some work, some don't, but hey.
Okay, so 20th year, I want to take you all the way back to the beginning. Who was the first coach for you that had the most impact?
I would have to go with my dad, and I know I don't want to give him too many props.
Shocker here.
Yeah, I want to make sure his head doesn't get too big on this, but obviously with my father, he coached me all the way through growing up. So I started when I was 4 years old. He got me my first year of rep, which was 2nd grade, and then all the way through grade 12. And the one thing that he really taught me throughout it all was consistency and accountability, and making sure that each and every day you are going to be as good as you could be, but know there's people chasing you. Know that the name on the back of your jersey, the name on the front of your jersey doesn't mean anything. People are going to get stronger, faster, they're going to get better at the game. If you don't keep giving yourself that extra edge, then you can't get anywhere with the sport. So that impact and having that throughout my life, that was the big reason why I am where I am today, and I've had so much success at a young age in my career.
Well, you could have all those extra conversations with your dad at home, but maybe we'll stick away from the personal tie, because sometimes when you think of teams, they either have nailed it or they failed it, where when they just show up at a game or on the court, that is just where they show up. And it's hard for some teams to kind of create that atmosphere, that environment where it's not just court work, it's family, it's checking in outside of that. Did you ever have that experience early on when it came to a relationship with a coach?
Yeah, absolutely. I think along the lines of that Hamilton transfer that I played with throughout my entire year, we had my dad, we had an assistant coach, and we had a woman coach, Jillian Valvasori. And I think what Jillian brought to our team was just that level of comfort and that level of being able to go to her and talk to her about absolutely anything. And I look back at that team now, these are my best friends. These are my core group of friends. These are people where now we're 23, 24, and we still go out to dinner. We still have Christmas parties. Our moms still hang out together. So there was definitely a family atmosphere there. And there was an atmosphere where there wasn't a lot of drama on our team. You know, when you're young and the parents are involved and everybody wants their kids to be the next Michael Jordan, there can be some issues there. But with our team, it never came through. It never came through from the parents. It never came through from the kids. And that's why I think to this day, we're all still so close, and we still talk about what we do now. We have vets, we have nurses. Obviously, I'm still playing basketball. So the things we've learned as a family and going through the tough times together on the court have made us stronger off the court.
I think the one thing for me that sticks out, like as a parent, is it's boundaries. It's allowing coaches to coach, but it also helps to breed this beautiful relationship between coach and player. What needs to be there in order for that to exist, that relationship to exist?
Well, I think in terms of coaching, you have to understand that there has to be a level that you understand and get your players on the court, but there also has to be a level that you get and understand your players off the court. Now, that doesn't have to be like super personal where my coach is always up in my business and they know everything about my life. It needs to be to the point where you know what's going on to a certain extent, and maybe it's affecting my play, but you can kind of figure out how to help me get through that. And for me, my first and second year in the New York Liberty, I had 3 coaches, so a head and 2 assistants, and then we had a player development coach who was Teresa Witherspoon. And she is an absolute legend, an absolute trailblazer in our sport, and her energy and her vibe and her positivity every single day in the gym. Like, you could be having a bad day. I've never seen Teaspoon have a bad day. But she would walk in the gym and she'd say, the lights are on, someone paid the bills, we get to play basketball today. Like, that was the vibe that she started every single day with. So for me, I got 20 minutes with her before practice every day, and that kind of got me going. No matter what, it wasn't a long session with her, but we got something done. And I can still, to this day, if I called her right now and I said, Teaspoon, what do I need to add to my game? She would tell me. She'd give me a whole detailed message about it. And if she didn't do it today, she would call me in 3 days and say, I watched all your film from the games. this is what you need to do. And if I called her and I needed something off the court, Teaspoon would be the first person to pick up the phone. So having that interaction, being able to have a coach who you can get what you need from them on the court, but also be able to go talk to them off the court so they understand it. I mean, with her especially, she had the player's view because she was a player before, but I think that makes a big difference as well.
It's that openness and that someone who just makes you feel comfortable and safe, first and foremost,
Absolutely.
to have those open conversations. You mentioned trailblazer, and I think that is so important because it leads into our next point. Representation, it matters, but it is lacking when we talk about women coaches, and particularly at a lower level. What needs to happen in order for that to change?
Well, I think you said it. Representation matters. If you can't be, you can't see it. We've said it a million times, right? But it's time to be about it. And for young women, when they walk into a gym, I think back to when I was walking into a gym when I was younger. For a young boy, they look at TV and they see, oh, I can be a Vince Carter. I can be a Kawhi Leonard. So they're like, oh, mom and dad want to put me in basketball? Yeah, let's do it. I'm going to be just like them. I'm going to get to the league. When it's a young woman, she walks into the gym and she hasn't probably seen many people that look like her on TV or playing her sport. So when mom and dad say, come on, we're going to go and try basketball, walking to the gym becomes a little bit more uncomfortable. It's the same thing when you're walking on the streets and you see people playing outside and they're on the outdoor courts. How many times do you see a young woman out there? Not many, right? So in the grassroots levels especially, in order for you to engage young women towards the sport, have them come and play, because there's so many life lessons that they're going to get out of this, whether they make it to the WNBA or not. That starts with having people that they can feel comfortable with in the gym. So if you have a female coach, that's someone you can go to, that's someone you can have a conversation with, that maybe, hey, I'm not feeling so great today because such and such is happening. They might understand that on a different level. So I think that needs to start just in the beginning so that you can engage more young women to want to play the sport,
right,
so that they can get more out of the sport. And then at the higher levels, if we start to also have more female representation, maybe now girls go through the sports, they get all the things that they could out of it, and they go into coaching. And then they start affecting and impacting the lives of other young women. And I think that's a big part of moving forward within our sport and within coaching.
Well, I love that because you bring up the point of, say, pipeline. So there are probably some coaches right now who are male who are wondering, how can I start? So where do you think they could start when they have maybe that young woman on their roster who might be or showing interest to one day coach? How can they bring them into the fold and at such a young age?
Well, it's continuing to help them find ways to be a leader, right? And that's both on the court and off the court, because a lot of coaching is leadership.
Right.
And being able to understand the pieces that you have on your team, how do they work together? How do I make people's strengths come out? And how do I either hide their weaknesses for a while or help fix their weaknesses? So when they have a young woman that wants to come in and get into coaching, help her learn how to be confident in a room. Help her learn how to communicate. Help her learn and decide what are the things that she would like as a coach. Like, what are the core values that you saw throughout your life from leaders and role models that you have? And how would you embody that as a coach? And really foster that relationship. Put them in situations where they can thrive, they can also fail, and they can learn from it.
20 years in the game, I mean, your game has changed, but also the level of ways in which you have to adapt to coaching styles. So what was the big coaching change for you when it came to how to manage and navigate that space from UConn to now playing pro?
Well, it's quite different. One's a job and one's not a job. That's how I see it. I think everybody always says, like, once you get to the pros, it's a business,
yeah,
right? So if you're not doing your job, they just send you out and they bring someone else in to do your job. And that's the one thing that my family has always told me, like, do your job, make sure you stay there. But in the coaching side, so obviously I went to UConn, I had Coach Ariema, and everybody's always fascinated by Coach Ariema's coaching style because we've been so successful as a team.
You want to say it. We've won a lot.
We've won a lot. We're a dynasty. Like, I know it. Many people do know it as well. But what makes him so good at what he does is there's a method to his madness. And he finds a way with each and every player to make you tick. And when he figures out what makes you tick, he uses it at the exact moments that you don't need him to use it at. And he gets you going. So for me, I was in Notre Dame in my freshman year, and apparently I was playing really well. He told me that afterwards. But he called me over, and he says my first and last name, because there was two Kias at the time. So, Kia Nurse, come here. And I'm like, oh no, what did I do? And we're shooting a free throw. All of a sudden, Muffet McGraw calls a timeout. So now we're all in the huddle, and he's just yelling at me. And I'm like, oh, what's happening? My parents are behind the bench at this point, and my lip is quivering. So I'm freaked out. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I feel like I'm playing well. And he was like, can you play? Like, are you good? And I was like, yeah. And he always tells that story. He's like, she was playing so well. I don't know why she freaked out all of a sudden.
Right.
But he knew that if he challenged me in any type of way, that I was going to respond with how I was playing. So he did that for each and every player. Then when you get to the pros, it's less about the skills and the development, because you're supposed to have that by the time you get to the pros. And if you want to continue your skill development, that's on you. So it was on me to call Teaspoon and say, hey, I want to get in the gym and work out with you. But when you get to the pros, because you know your job is on the line, these coaches' job is on the line as well, right? If our team doesn't play well, all of a sudden their contracts are gone. So it gets a little bit more antsy. They're just trying to figure out ways to also help you be successful, but because there's a lack of accountability there in the sense of, here's your time to come to the gym, here's your time for film, lifting, be there on time. How you handle your outside life, that's up to you.
Right.
When you're in college, if you're not doing well in school, your coaches are gonna know.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Somebody's gonna tell on you, so you gotta figure that out. Where in the pros, it's more, this is what you need to do to be great. It's up to you how much effort and how much work you put in there.
But it speaks to maybe the coaches that you've grown up with, because they've taught you a lot about accountability. I'm wondering what the difference is between playing in the W and also Australia, because my goodness, basketball has taken you everywhere, girl.
Yes, spent a lot of time with a lot of different people. So my coach in Australia, Paul Goris, he's actually the assistant coach for the national team on the women's side in Australia. They're number 2 ranked in the world, so they have a great system. They play really well together, and he's had a ton of experience both coaching on the men's side and on the women's side. So with him, it was a little bit different. I think it was a lot of fun in our practices because we had our good banter back and forth. He was a shoe guy, so he always fought me on my shoes. But I think what was great about him and what's different in Australia is because their league starts so young, so they have the opportunity to come into the professional leagues at 17, 18 for development players, and then their youngest players could be maybe 19 or 20. So you have a little bit more of a development side that you have to start helping them with their skills, start helping them transition to that pro game in a different way than you would in college when you have those 4 years to do that. So these kids got to pick up quick, and these coaches got to keep moving things along. So with him, I think what I was really fortunate was he sat me down and he was like, what do you like to run? Like, how do you like to score? And I had never been in that position before. And I was like, I think I like these things, and I can come off these screens here. He's like, cool. And he kept putting me in those positions, and he's like, we need you to score, we need you to score. And that was something that hadn't happened to me before. I'd always kind of been like the defensive stopper. So he completely changed my offensive game and my confidence in my offensive game. So in Australia, the game's a little bit different. The bigs, their centers shoot threes. You know, they play a little bit different. They play a little bit longer. They have a little bit of longevity in their careers. And then in the WNBA, facing the hardest, best players in the world every single night. But the coaching staff is making sure, again, like when you're on the road, you go and be in your hotel room when you want to be in your hotel room, right? They're not here to babysit you. They're here to give you the tools to make sure you can win the game. So that's your scouts, and our scouts are always dead on point. They give you everything from the play calls to the exact plays. They make sure that, obviously, WNBA, you don't have as much time to practice. So the skill development stuff kind of falters a little bit because you have 3-4 games a week and you're traveling. So that's the difference. In Australia, you only have 1 game a week. So you have a lot of time to kind of fix what's in between. The coaches in WNBA have a ton of work to do. They got to do it in a quick amount of time, and they got to deal with the traveling and all the extra stuff as well. So that's, I think, the big difference between those two.
I mean, the coaches are just making sure you don't get humbled in the W, because we know that can happen a lot.
Yes.
Okay, so we have a couple of questions from people here watching, and the first coming from Coach Danielle from Oakville, who wants to know, can you talk about the relationship dynamics that are at play when your parent is the coach? Is Kia's dad watching? Let's see.
Me and my dad have butt a couple heads once in a while when we were younger. It's definitely a different dynamic. You really do have to figure out how to separate coach and parent, and I have to separate coach and player. And that at times can get annoying, right? Like at one point in a practice, my dad was just behind me, and I could hear him saying, like, correct your shot, correct your shot.
Yeah.
He knew I was doing something wrong, and I didn't want to admit it. So at one point I was just like, go. Like, I just gave him the hand, and he kicked me out of practice. So, I learned from those lessons. But I definitely think when your parent is the coach, they're going to obviously be hard on you, right? No game that you play is ever going to be a good enough game. That's okay. I think it's important as well for you to tell your kids when they do well. Like, my dad was really good at that. Like, you played well today. And he was really good at being like, you didn't play well today, and this is where you need to get better. But the other big thing is, treating everybody equally, right? So the things he would tell me were the same things he would tell the person next to me and the person beside me. He could be a little bit harder on me back on the way home from games, but he was always going to put it out in front of people and make sure they knew that he wasn't treating me special in any type of way. And I think that's why it worked so well with my team growing up. So there's a bit of a dynamic there that you got to kind of...
It's a fine balance.
And get it on their line, but it can work.
All right, and we have a question here from Coach Rebecca from Etobicoke, which area you are now very familiar with. So you have a sports family. How did you end up in basketball?
Yeah, I get that one a lot, actually. So when I was born, my sister is 9 years older than me. She'll be mad that I said that on TV. But my mom and dad were coaching her at the same time, and my brother and I were always just in the gym. So we ended up watching her play, and I thought she was amazing, and so I wanted to be just like her. My brother and I actually started in soccer when we were 3, and we kind of just all followed the ball, like, typical young kids playing soccer. I enjoyed that. We did some skating. I was great at skating until...
Your brother stayed skating.
He stayed. I was way better than him at the time, but until the puck and the stick came in, I was like, nope, I'm good. This is fun, as much as I needed out of it. So I actually stuck with basketball and soccer. So I played soccer in the summertime, basketball in the wintertime, and I did that all the way up until 9th grade of high school. And at that point, I had to decide because the national team stuff was starting to come in. So I felt bad because I would go to soccer practice once a week, and then I'd play the entire game, and it was not fair. So I just give that one up. But I spent all of the time doing that because for my off season, basketball and soccer have a lot of similarities. So you play the game in triangles, pretty similar. Your footwork, your ability to have your endurance, because center mid is an endurance position. And then I spent a lot of time in high school and elementary school just trying out different sports. I tried volleyball in high school. Might have been the only sport I actually sat on the bench. Yeah, women's touch football.
Okay.
I was in the inaugural tournament for our high school in our city. I was the quarterback, the kicker, the lead of the defense.
Your uncle would be so proud.
A little bit of everything, to be honest. And then I did tons of cross country and track and field. I loved those. I would be the best finisher in our family every week, so that made me very happy. But I think playing in all those different sports not only gave me the opportunity to meet so many different people, but I learned a lot of different things, right? Like there's a lot more patience I find in soccer, and me not trying to run to the other side of the field and just fix it myself. I had to trust my teammates were going to be able to do it. I found there's a whole lot of accountability. I'm competitive in everything I do, so being able to kind of be adaptable and figure out what's going on in each season and figure out how does this sport help me with the next sport? How does this sport help me with maybe my English paper and being able to sit down and have time management. Little things like that. I feel like being a multi-sport athlete was a big part of why I am where I am. Like if I would have specialized in basketball my entire life, I would have been burnt out by now. Would have been burnt out by the time I was probably 10 or 15. And I think that's what scares me now about like today's athletes is that they always go for one sport. Like play a bunch of different sports. Enjoy your time. Like you get to experience different coaches then, a different type of coaching, different type of coaching style, so that when you end up wherever you end up, you might end up in an office place at some point. You can deal with your boss because they're probably like one of your coaches that you had at some point, right? So that makes a big difference.
Or you can end up like Kia Nurse. She plays basketball, she broadcasts, she can give you soccer if she wants to. Kia, thank you as always for spending some time with me and imparting all your insight to everyone that is watching right now. And a huge thank you to Tangerine, because without their support, this event, it would not be possible. So we're gonna head into a short break and we will see you again momentarily.